Chöda milam nyemba sema, chaja nima dawa gembe, chenye pola wera sama, hare nijo tutarayi, shindo dambe rimne sema, chaja dingi sunama kobe, shiwe toda yangda dema, doda rola nijin chonam, jomba turi racho nima, Zawe ngagi tuiba di dang, chaja wani ngishu zaji.
Dashidele Rinpoche, Dashidele.
Oh, yeah.
Dashidele Rinpoche, con canzone.
Tocena. Ti mende dubati.
No,
No,
mandala breve.
Oi sa je peke ju je me do ja ri ran li she me de gemba de sangye je do me do pralwa yi dogo nam da shin la che para sho kari ra we korwe chingam de pendanga dewa male chongwe Jere shewa deje gaso shabye chede barado dengyure je idam guru radna mandala kam nirya taya me azur
Oh, 다시 가.
Connection seems not good. We wait a few moments and we start.
상계 최다의 상남마 자조바도 단위 겹소시 나게 최시에게 총남게 로라베 상계 로바라 쇼 상계 최다 소기 총남라 자조바도 단위 겹소치 다게 최시에게 총남 로라베제 상계 로바라 쇼 상계 최다 소기 총남 자조바도 단위 겹소치 다게 최시에게 총남 로라 펜제 상계 로바라 쇼 오 마스 제 탐지 등도 토자라나메와 양타보 조베 상계기 보만은 부시 진내야 토바차 디지도 담배 최성을 내와 세용해베 그는 그서 그는 꾸지를 마다 내와 세
Please listen to the Holy Dharma teachings. Listen to the Holy Dharma teachings, having adjusted your conduct and your motivation, thinking for the sake of all the mother sentient beings who are equal to the extent of space, I must achieve the precious state of perfect complete enlightenment. And for that reason, I'm going to listen to these Holy Dharma teachings. So I've got a frozen picture in front of me. I don't know about everybody else.
다디네 숨바디 아니 데려다 가서 숨발라다 니르샤 따왔다 숨바 따바르바 따와셔바디 니 데가라서 양타베 따바 쳐고베 김진이체 아니 제베 따방무스 티니마도 제베 따방무니스 어디 셰고
Yeah. So then we're on the third point now, which is about the what we call the correct view, Yandapetawa, the correct view of reality. So for this, we have first of all an explanation of why it's necessary to try to gain that insight, that view of reality, the correct view of reality. And then then after that, we have an actual explanation of what that view is. No.
못하잖아. 다 당보. 따바 최고비 김진의 가르스는 내로 또베 싫어 민데나 연주 청주 쓰면 공제게 세베 잡아 주면 민네베 지지 땡데 또베 털베스. 어다 치티래라.
For this, we have, for the first one, the reason, we're looking at verse 9. And it says, without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, even though you have generated renunciation and the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, you won't be able to cut the root cause of circling in cyclic existence. Therefore, attempt to achieve the method, to realize the method, attempt the method to realize dependent arising. No.
뭐야? 다디 가르스나 아니 비게 가서 참바다 잡아 보면 다가는 시 아니 가소래 니종 보면 돼서 딱 시라 개심보를 이내야 뒤치고 지금 말했어. 그래서는 뒤가는 양탁 왜 따바 내로도 왜 따바면은 아니 코베 동에 코베 잡아지는 코바를 줘야 되는 용거 말했어. 코바 그래서는 코베 난다 디기시 용거만도 그래서 코베 잡아디 양탁 왜 따바디 내로도 왜 따바디 제고 제가 됐든 코베 난면도 탈거 말했어.
What this is saying is that even though loving kindness, compassion, renunciation, although those are very important, of course, they're extremely important, but just those alone are not enough to cut through the root of circling in cyclic existence. To be able to do that, you absolutely have to have the view realizing emptiness, the realization of emptiness, in other words. It's only with that you'll be able to cut through that root, and it's only with that wisdom that you'll be able to gain liberation from cyclic existence. No.
되네. 단도 코베 나려야甚至 딘데 첨된 배 딘데 강에 세제 단도보다 코베를 타모도 그죠. 코베가 되게 타투야 말와. 디 가래서는 양한테 왜 내루티 모도 인자. 디리 상계 좀된 내기 아니 코베 동에 甚至 되게 줘야 치도 투 잡아 침별 양한테 왜 따바티 땜베서 땜데 탑 두메도 남사 커도 땜 디메나 데려야 티야 치도 탑 현나 체제 나바나조 제된 너드나 아니 코베 甚至 되게 내루 따바 또니 대도비나 셰비나 코베를 코란 타로我觉得你送我的商业中的那个
Countless mother sentient beings like ourselves have been wandering from life to life in cyclic existence without beginning up until now. And the reason for that is because we didn't realize this view. We didn't realize emptiness. And so the Buddha, in order to free the sentient beings, to liberate them from cyclic existence, out of compassion for them, taught about emptiness, taught about the view. And because it's difficult to immediately get that realization, he also taught a variety of methods that would enable us to gradually reach that view. And if we get that view, if we get that realization, then we'll be able to gain freedom from cyclic existence. No.
뭐야? 상계 좀 된 얘기 아니 내로 따와 땡데 사디 송불 뜻송야디 주로 수지를 요 말에 어디 상계기 딱 개발 인도도 송 말에 또 제배 왕게 송 말에 어디 내로 따와 땡데 사 송야디 수지가 뭐 송어디 상계 송 거야디 심지 티게로 또 제바 첨벽관에 니 셰비나 아니 심지 코랑 코베 동일에 대도 이거래 대마도 아니 이게 심지 티게 코베나 유야디 현다지 상계가 마 요고 말에 수술 레산이 비게 머리고 왕게 코바 코브레 디네 상계기 아니야 비게 가서 콘도 동의시면 야이사 차제 아니 람사야 디네 슬라관에 킨 대단야요 말에 제가 심지 고래 거래서는 코바를 코야디 추기 내루디 마시버시 머리고 디왕고 코바 인사 추기 내루디 도 레시제 뭐에 내주티 도스 레시제 디레스 임바된 엔다제는 하고 요로 심지 뭐 디송자 디템비나 코바를 타누요 어디 상계기다 또 제베 송야 금지되래
In order for us to be able to realize emptiness, the Buddha, our teacher, taught dependent arising, which is something that nobody else teaches. He was the only one that taught that. And so why did he teach that? not just to kind of like show off that he's some kind of great kind of like master or something like that. Not for that reason, but out of compassion, because he knew that if he taught dependent arising and if we understood dependent arising, then we'd be able to gain liberation. So at the moment, so liberation from what? At the moment where we are is we're in cyclic existence, and we're not there. We're not suffering in cyclic existence because the Buddha put us there. We're there because of our karma. And so the Buddha isn't able to simply reach down and pull us out of cyclic existence. Rather, because of the fact that we're in cyclic existence, because of ignorance and because of karma, if we understand emptiness, which means explaining exactly how things are, if we can understand that, then we'll be able to overcome that ignorance and we'll be able to escape from cyclic existence in that way. No.
let's do it. 재상 아니 다 준주나 여봐 예라 되다 탐제는 특别싫었던 동스 다 산계 좀된 되게 진보다 추름 대수 평형도 대수 강가 송요 진보 추름 쇠와 존주 아니 띵이즈 고미야 대수 강가 송요 되게 더 되나 뒤지고 되고야만 또 되게 가려서나 대송이 또또디 아니 특别싫었던 싫어 사무 동반이 땡데 동배 돈다 동바 땡데 또야 돼도 치 송버레스 당고 지망고 송요데 되게 또데 말 또데 싫어 퍼진데 또래 싫어 오 제가 어디 동반이 또야 치도 송버레스 간다
In the at the beginning of the ninth chapter of the Bodhisattva, Shantideva, so he's in his chapter talking about the practice of wisdom. He makes the point, Shantideva makes the point that he says, his own words are that these branches were only taught for the sake of wisdom. So what that means is that the Buddha taught about the practice of generosity, morality, patience, joyous effort, and wisdom. So those are all, of course, extremely important, but just those are not enough. You have to combine that with the realization of emptiness. You have to be able to understand that emptiness implies dependent arising implies emptiness. You have to be able to understand that. So all of those practices that he taught before about generosity and so forth, those are all for the sake of, they were all taught for the sake of being able to gain wisdom, and specifically the wisdom understanding emptiness. No.
Oh yeah. 제가 ngazu nangwe domba sangye zomde de la domba lana me ba so ta domba de kwan zan me ba de ta xie ma ngwe ne zu chi song de kharesana domba sangye zomde de gi ani chuge ne lu den de domba sa ti chuge ne lu chi ma chi xin song ba de din de de domba su chi gi song yo ma de 제가 o de 제가 de song ba le de ne domba sangye zomde de domba lana me ba kharesana di现在最近的电图样嘛的，上个中的这个的起码是电呢，我东西tham gia的呢，电个对吧？特别啊，我都难得电吧的，现在都把那买吧送多啊，我都是的。
We talk about our teacher, the Buddha, as being the peerless teacher. And when we say that, is not just to say something nice, but it's just the reality. He's peerless. And the reason is that he explained how everything is empty. So he explained exactly how things really exist, very precisely. He explained how they're empty of existing from their own side. And no other teacher taught that. No other teacher was able to teach that. And for that reason, he has no equal, no peer, no equal. No.
我的天，啊对了呀，可是呢，西北这边提起点点到位，到了白是他的地， 제라마 종가부 침배 땡데도베 털베 오 지난전나 동료도베 털베 저는 디그레 야 다음에도베 털베 동반이도 다음에다 어디 비게 랑심에부터 찍어라 봐 가르람네 손에 디그리디 한다 될라 땡데 사선 땡데도베 털베 어디 지는 잠배양의 명아래 네 베데 땡데디 다 동반이 사데 찍어 두고 어디 배 개심보래 어떻잖아
And you see that at the end of that verse, verse 9, Lama Tsongkhapa himself says, therefore attempt the method to realize dependent arising. Now, he could easily have said, therefore attempt the method to realize emptiness, or therefore attempt to the method to realize selflessness. They mean the same, and that would have been okay. But he doesn't say that. He says, therefore attempt the method to realize dependent arising. And this is Manjushri's special instruction, because his instruction was that we need to understand more or less the equivalence of emptiness and dependent arising. No.
아니 낭배나 두담마와 시여와 제다 마바 도대와 셈담바 우마랑 더 우마오스레 더 우마랑 유가다 우마 텐기버스 카가샤르마도 오다 단다 우마랑 유의 면제티게 디게 참에 동반이 시아가시르 동반이 시에그레 다음에 시에그레 레디 텐데 동바 텐데사 큐네 콘도 송동을 신이요 말 제산디 텐규베 텐데사드다 동배 천다 동바사 텐데다 직판 로야 줘봐 뭐버지는 똑같다된 로야디 텐규베 주만 디 신구고 제산디 텐데송에 되래
Within Buddhism, concerning the different philosophical systems, we have four main philosophical systems or schools of tenets, if you like, those being Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamika. Within Madhyamika, you also have the Swatantrika and Prasangika. So apart from the Prasangika, all of the other ones, from the Vaibhashika up to Swatantrika, they all talk about emptiness, they all talk about selflessness, but they don't teach about the connection between dependent arising and emptiness. They don't teach it, and they can't teach it. They just don't get that. They can't see how it is. They're not able to understand how it is that that emptiness and dependent arising are the same nature, one nature, and only differing in terms of their reverse. No.
따디네 이버 따방무에 때마 따제고 김세 따방무에 때마 그제 들어 가자 요랬으나 아니 따방무에 따방무 따와사데 가리면 따방무에 따바 귤을 give 세 아니 따베 캐주시 숨도 될라 어디체 보잖아
따방무에 디 귤을 give 세제 되네
캐주 캐주 따베 캐주
캐주 no
No.
So now we're going to go on to the the actual explanation of the view, and within that, for the remaining verses, what we're looking at is the actual explanation. Then this is followed by the definition of having realized the view, in other words, having realized emptiness, and then Lama Tsongkhapa goes on to talk about the special features of the Prasangika understanding of emptiness. No.
뭐도잖아. 따왕거다. 강시 광대圈呢 他们这一军队那边路没通信 미괴 대수 강인 군 시바 되는 상계 계배 남라 슈스 어 따방외 되되면
Oh. So for the first point, then the actual explanation of the view, you've got verse 10. Verse 10 says, one who sees the cause and effect of all phenomena of both cyclic existence and the state beyond sorrow as forever unbetraying, and for whom any object trusted in by the grasping mind has completely disappeared, has at that time entered the path pleasing the Buddhas. No.
뭐야 다 강시 미송的几年송的几年강시 헌대처럼 헌대사도 포바체 야는 양에도 딩이마도 요마봐 오다 딩은 뒤에 취예제 간다 시제 인제 컨디션 탐지 이기세 군대나 루어면서 다디 딘데스래 최 탐지 이게 간가 덴데리도 덴데 뜨네 주부 짱짱마도 뜨메 라마 주어서 촌이 요 말에 또 제바체 딱제 세비는 간가 덴데 지지 뜨는 주버래 응아 나도 뒤제 뒤도이나 줄을 때는 레부 총아래 마도 규면은 레부 용거 말봐 딱 뒤머체 돼도 데를 뜨니 어디 샤바 마도 바 자반에 요 말에 제가 유제 간가 덴데 덴데 송 인상 아니 덴데 송 인상 아니 디리 가서 라왕 현의 때는 두버려 마도 현 때도 요래 템버래 현을 때버려 테마도 코라 라왕 소지 마도 봐 라왕 두버요 마 라왕 두버 동바 니스래 현의 간가 때베 인자 덴지스래 다 딩이 부디 아니 가르스나 다 디처나 탐지 근데 나요 루어 매통신 최 탐지 간가 덴지 송자 안딜레 가르스나 귤렌데 부숑지체 가리 이네 루바요 마레스 매통신지 어디에 디슈라
So this verse is saying one who sees, so anybody, absolutely anybody who sees the cause and effect of all phenomena of both cyclic existence and a state beyond sorrow. So the cyclic existence, to use the Sanskrit term samsara, the state beyond sorrow, nirvana. So everything, there's just those two. There's everything which exists is included within those. So all phenomena of samsara and nirvana are dependent arisings. What this means is that everything which exists is a dependent arising, which means nothing exists completely independently. If you check well, then you'll see whatever it is, it's dependent. It exists depending on other things, like in the case of causal phenomena. Then an effect depends upon the cause. If there's no cause, then the effect, the result won't follow. So there's nothing which is independent. And because of being a dependent arising, then if something is a dependent arising, then it's not going to be independent. Independent means not depending upon anything at all, right? So there's nothing which is completely independent. And this is unbetraying in the sense that everything, just everything, you can guarantee everything exists dependently. Everything's a dependent arising. Lao.
어디세 다 덴지 인비 인자 아니 라왕这个东巴고바 돼야지 라왕这个东巴인자 덴지 고바 돼야 디 고바 디现在没大气我解有的我让做像我不是呢我不的他说嘞我不的你他个真的刚才是加了个通比呢的的没大把嘞데 뭐래 데 미다버레스 데다 뭐버 임 미다버 임바디 고바시라요 말에 고 거래서는 미다버 깨지게 그 교로다 미다버 뭐버 손자 뭐버 사데 고 귤레 총자 뭐버 시그러 봐 딘데지 마도 믹스에 고바시라요 말에 뭐벌 다 단다 덴데 산디 아니 덴데 임비 인사 아니 라왕 주베 동바 라왕 그 민도 라왕가 동바 인사 덴데르시 딩이 코바디 우디 베디 뭐네 타는 코바디 현다 맨다 코바 첨부 깨다 늘르덴 애니베디 라랑 냠도 똑바 믹스 깨깨야 고다디 일 가바 켜바지 깨야죠 봐 날 통용 매우 신디 어디 믹스 지 임버 코바 깨야요
Now, the fact that, as I mentioned, the fact that something is a dependent arising means it's empty of existing independently. And so when you think about these two, there's some very special understanding that you get, which is unlike the understanding that you would get from anything else. Like, for example, when we talk about something being a functioning thing, a functioning thing, that simply means that, it's something which depends upon cause and conditions. When you say something is impermanent, it simply means that it's changing moment by moment. But besides that, there's no special understanding that you get from it. Not like with the understanding how everything is empty because of being a dependent arising. This is something very special. And by understanding it, then it will bring a kind of joy in the mind from having seen this thing that you never understood before, unlike anything else. No.
pero shuina ta kiran zo ram sa ko do ri ne pero shubi na ta na gyoba ji din des gyoba ji ya do la na ko de ma ro pe rin do kesa gyoba de ko de ge men do ko rang je de ge men do je ta de ya dis le de zang ba ko ka de sen gyoba ko rang je de ma to ba de tong ga ni sa ta kan da ko ka de sen ko rang 런주 투고요 말 런주 매버들 동반 있어요 다 현다지 요 로바이나 땡으로 다다고 땡투 동반 있어도 그 런주 뭐도 인자 현은 땡과야 돼 고투고요 현은 땡는 거 대두고요 봐 현은 마데 인자 고 라왕 매와 리두두스 제 다디네 교반이 송도 제 대비나 고 대두로 고 텔파 현다 봐서 땡네 고 대샤스나 고 마데는 고 라왕 매와 다 땡바데 땡데체 찌찌 고 되게 대토가 매버디 라와 대토 라와 매버디 동반이 있어 다디 고 가래서나 고바디 현나 매다스도 와오 다디 되게 다 딘데스 지난번에 고도 다 단다 싫은 이분 아니야 속 동바오 동반이 소소 찌글 조조거 속 동바래 동반이 소소 속래 동반이 시면 동반이래 자 소시면 다 디득이 뒤제도 뒤 송바 다 코도고요 간가 다 단다 가버렸으면 나도 고마도 베세제 이제 봐서 대디간을 배 먹고라고도 봐 단데 봐 야간 데와 여 다가 나시 그 그때 제라마 종어신 데와 데와 베 세세팅디 그때디다 아니 가서래 사무단 뒤전다 막고 켜네요 말이야 동바데 네 땡데 동바사디 고 뭐버 찍버리디 너가 타데 민카가 다요
Let me give you a sort of an example for understanding the relationship between dependent arising and emptiness. So maybe you noticed that Rinpoche was holding up a stick, right? And the point he was making was the point. So the point I'm making by holding up that stick is just by itself, it can't stand, right? You try to leave it to stand up and it just falls over. So, and from this you understand that in order to be able to stand up, it would have to depend upon a couple of other sticks. So depending, the fact that stick can only can only stand up depending upon other things is like dependent arising. The fact that it can't stand up by itself, that's like emptiness. So you can understand the connection between empty and dependent arising in that way. And so this is also like it says in the Heart Sutra. Remember, there are those 4 statements in the Heart Sutra where the Buddha says, form is empty, emptiness is form. Form is not other than, there's no form other than emptiness, there's no emptiness other than form. So there are so many commentaries by Indian masters and Tibetan masters explaining these things, and with the understanding of the relationship between dependent arising and emptiness, then we'll be able to understand all of that. It's quite, it becomes all becomes quite straightforward. So the main thing to understand is the connection between emptiness and dependent arising is that so they have one nature, but they are, the term used before, the technical term, if you like, the term we used before is that they are the same, they're different reverses, they have a different reverse. This is similar to saying that nominally they're different. So one nature, but only nominally different.
시도는 여자가 덴데 임바신 덴데 임베인자 아니 베게 현을 모두가 라왕가 매바티 신수나 동바 덴데 니 덴데 동바 디던다 코바티 신용고요래 어디세 어디 조직세 다 디네데 미베데서 간유근시 왔어 미바사 디나다 베코사 딕단지스 단지 말이고 미버스라 미바스 다디 베자다 지 커서래 남기 규면은 담면들어 상자 미바스 양카시도 뭐버 매바스 다 남면다 베자 남기 때면은 민 담면다 던다도 가르스나 미버스다디 단지 말이고 대소스나 대바투바 단지게 대바투바 시에는 맞대봐 라왕그 요바지 지대 라왕 저 요 말에 잡아네 그 시작 거라 말봐 요 말에 디 라왕 투바디 아니 가사다 딘지기 라왕 투바 매보다 라왕 투바 지대 오 딘지기 라왕 투바 라왕그 매봐 덴바 매봐 지버래 어디 미베 대소 간신심 딘지기 지대베 딘두디 덴바 투바디 잡아네 라체 잡아네 대소 강이 군시버스 제바찬 큐나라는 와타 메타주레샤스 디고나 던지기 다사 요선 베지 지데오라 티자바네 다 민두제 미그 군시버스도 매차노다 제바찬 학고래 시고 티니 상계 기베 라마쇼스 오다 디카레스나 상계 좀 되게 송야게 추나고 내루 터도디 디리 티제가 티셰비이나 상계 기바스 상계 기베 라마쇼 상계 기바사데 샘지기 디신으로 전화 샘지코라 코베 동네 타루어 타르바다 탐지 캠버사 톱두고요. 오 가리네. 오 그런 르르 제가 상계 기바. 상계가 잘해 나야디 샘지 동네 된 땡게 되바 거야 도마도 요 말와. 제가 상계 다티 던다 르르 상계 도 게로르바. 상계 기베 라마스 또잖아.
Now, okay, so then furthermore in this in this verse, so yeah, the way it's been translated, this is good, and it says, and for whom, so this is still verse 10, right? For whom any object trusted in by the grasping mind has completely disappeared. So the grasping mind, so the mikpa in Tibetan says the mikpa, so that means the grasping mind, the mind grasping at true existence, true existence. And then what's the object of that mind? True existence itself. So you've got the grasping mind, its object is true existence. So when it says has completely disappeared, what that means is that if you examine that object of the true grasping mind, in other words, if you check to see whether things really are truly existent in the way that the true grasping or self-grasping mind holds it to exist, then what you'll discover is there's no such thing at all. When it says disappears, it means you realize that it's totally non-existent. And when you realize that, then you've entered the path that pleases the Buddhas. What that means is that in the case of like our founding teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, he taught emptiness in order for the sentient beings to understand emptiness, because he knew that when the sentient beings understand emptiness, then they free themselves. With that understanding, they free themselves from psychic existence. And so then when that's why it is that if they understand emptiness, then the Buddha is so pleased. So when you have that understanding, you've entered the path that pleases the Buddhas. Lao.
都行了，对些，他的我他妈修路的，的我的，能当说些呢，我这个电电的东北你的几个都可把家么都是卡着呢，呢，上节广播导游嘛，这是，在地的，那我电电路没我当，东北开连车可把你，其实说那我第四都成都特别广播到过没是，
Then the next verse, verse 11, so in terms of the heading, it says the definition of not having completed the analysis of the right view. So what this verse, I'll read it out first. It says, if the appearance of dependent relation, which is unbetraying, is accepted separately from emptiness, and as long as they're seen as separate, then one has still not realized the Buddha's intent. So what that means is that if you're not able to, in a sense, unite appearances and emptiness, in other words, if you're not able to fit dependent arising and emptiness, existence and emptiness together, if you feel like they're two separate things, then you still haven't really understood the Buddha's teaching on emptiness. Lao.
我都想了，他的。다 나와 된대 단다 다 남주 군도 때 봤을 거 같아 샤네 되래 나와 된대 어디 아니 루와 매버다스 그래서나 귤렌 디부사디 베 기그도가 귤렌 디부 중고도 루바 촌면도 오 라랑게 뒤제 그래 라랑 귤레 디 용고도 다가난신 나랑조 대화다 동의사인데 라랑 귤 레상볼에 대화 용고래 랭에 봐서는 동의 연구 때 대바 된장です된장 오도 고바실네 디 베트 뭐이 내주 다 그랬어 어디세 다 되네 다 추그 콜라 근데 그 뭐부터 근데도 세네 딱 눈티 봐 거래 명다요 딱 눈티 제도 좀 멍이 줘로 매봐 어디 정신이 매봐 그 정신 매봐도 하고서는 어디 디다 군인이 뭐디 냠도 데마도 세 지금도 원에 저는 배데 뭐이 내 주베데 덴바 된장래 지금도 그래서 때다도 전에 매버래샤 진짜 등이 배 카가 다는 알아서 제가 아마 봐 너때 봤다 딱 간다랑 요면제디 두 카가 렌도로 고바티 뭐만래 두고요 말아 오 땡데 동바 땡데 사디 고바티 뭐버지 글런도 고타들 렌 두고요 말아 어디 말에 매체 배 카가 배디 사보다 전문능시 카가 로스나 상계 공부 또요 말했어 터도 또요 말했어
So we have the phrase here in the first line, the appearance of dependent arising, same thing. So when it talks about appearances, it's talking about dependent arising, and dependent arisings are unbetraying. So that's what the phrase he uses here, unbetraying, luameba. And what that means is, when we say unbetraying, what that means is that in terms of dependent arising on the level of cause and effect, so the causes lead to their effects, lead to their results, and that's unbetraying. That's completely true. It's always true. And likewise, happiness arises from good karma, accumulating good karma. Suffering arises from accumulating bad karma. And that's unbetraying. It's completely true. It really is like that. So it's talking about understanding that point. So that kind of understanding on the one hand, and then if you search for the object within its basis of imputation, you won't be able to find it. So what this verse is talking about is not being able to reconcile these two. In other words, on the one hand, you think, well, okay, everything is dependent arising, but then if it's empty, if it's empty of being able of findability when you look for it in the basis of imputation, in other words, if you can't find it when you look for it in its basis of imputation, then it must be non-existent. So you can't fit the two together, dependent arising and empty. You think if it's empty, it can't exist from it can't exist at all, empty of existing from its own side, not being able to find it in the basis of imputation. And this is actually quite common in a way, a common situation. Everybody actually below the Prasangikas, apart from the Prasangikas, in other words, that's the feeling they have. That, like for example, the Vaibhashikas, for them it's very clear if you can't find the thing in its basis of imputation, it must mean that it doesn't exist. So for them, being a dependent arising, they just can't fit together with being empty of existing from its own side, empty of existing from its own side, because you can't find it when you look for it in the base of imputation. No.
la so ta tine ta niba di tawa gyul gebe se tawa gyul gebe tsedir sha namshi renjo mewa jikjar do tendre melo tongwa zamni ne nieshi yu yin zindan gun jingna teze tabe jawa zoba la sa
Okay, so then if we go on to the next verse, this is talking about the definition of having completed the analysis of the right view. So verse 12. If these two realizations are happening simultaneously without alternation, and from merely seeing dependent relation as completely unbetraying, the definite ascertainment comes that completely destroys the way all objects are apprehended as truly existent. At that time, the analysis of the ultimate view is complete. No.
뭐야 어디체 다 남시스 아니 땡데 tonda 땡데 사디 그기지고 샤야 말에 이 드머체도 떠는 줘 받고 지금 떠는 줘 봐. 야나 땡는 줘 봐. 그래서 간가 지버래. 오 닌데 제제 간다 땡데 이미 인사 고 신다 떠는 그래. 떠는 고 마대가 라왕 그 매봤지. 동반이 있었대. 마대가 라왕이 요 라왕 땡바 줘로 봐. 라왕 줘be 동바 줘be. 매대 제자 对吧 지지对比인자 뭐对吧的没吧的现在我的哈国是呢连这米罗吧咱们呢我的哈国是呢人做没吧这个什么那这个的怎么东北人也吧的呀让王个没吧的让王个没是的怎么现在对呢有吧的也吧这个怕人多叫吧人做没吧这个都也吧这样的我的确对다 디도가 다 디도 배저 마다나 신가 말에 통화 점니네 대 하고 예시 이긴 지난 구시스 예시스 돈데 예시스다디 딘진스그레 단지 당기 라바죠 찍거래 단지 유스 이 유디 템바토 버래 다디 고 민도 다샤르마도 다 뭐이 듣지 버래 제가 오 땡제 인비 인상 라왕 투어면도 라왕 투어 동바리샤 동바니 하고 라왕 매가 체제 디인자 그때 현대샤 땡데레샤스 디체네 에네가레스나 딘지기 유 비게 데바투어죠 데바투어 베틀라네 딘제 매가 차도 데바투어 매가 차도 니시 지도한데 딘지데 니시 유사디 단지 가서 데바투어래 어디 강가 매가 차스나 에 다베 제바 줘버렸어 다베 제베 학 거버렸다 뭐 이네스 신버다서 들사가 제바 요 말을 다 그래 다
Now, okay, so for this verse, first of all, I want to make the point when we talk about dependent arising, this is not something that applies only to compounded or conditioned phenomena is the correct term, but what it means is, like causal phenomena. In other words, things that exist depending upon causes, results that exist depending upon causes. There are also unconditioned phenomena, but those also exist dependently. So everything exists, whether it's a conditioned phenomenon or an unconditioned phenomenon, exists dependent on other factors. So the thing is, what this verse is saying is that when you can understand if something is dependent arising, that means it exists relative to something else or reliant upon something else. And because of that, then you can understand it doesn't exist independently. If it existed independently, it would be truly existent. So you're understanding it doesn't exist because it doesn't exist independently. It's not truly existent. It's empty of true existence. So what this is getting at is your understanding of emptiness and dependent arising is such that from understanding that something is dependent arising, you know that it has to be empty. You understand its emptiness. And when you understand that something is empty, then you know it must be a dependent arising. So now in this verse, so that you see about halfway down, there is the term definite ascertainment. So this definite ascertainment refers to grasping at true existence. So before, what was it? There's the word referent or something like that. It's not so clear when you look at the English, but anyway, I was talking about how this word means true grasping, and then this word means the object of true grasping, in other words, true existence. So it's similar here, using different terms, but it comes down to the same thing. So when it says definite ascertainment, that's referring to grasping at true existence. And then when it talks about objects in the next line, then that's talking about the object of true grasping, in other words, true existence again. Okay, so it's just using different terms. So if we look at this again, if these two realizations are happening simultaneously without alternation, in other words, it's not like you think if something is truly is a dependent arising, then it can't be empty. If it's empty, it can't be a dependent arising, but you're able to combine the two together. You're able to understand how they fit together. And from merely seeing dependent relation as completely unbetraying, the definite ascertainment comes that completely destroys the way all objects are apprehended as truly existent. So in other words, you understand the non-existence of that object of true grasping, namely true existence or self-existence. So at that point, then you've completely got the view. You completely got the understanding of emptiness. No.
못하잖아. 다들 어디서 다간다 땡땡 코바티 개심보 시다래. 뭐 태기에 땡땡 코바티. 단다 빼나 딱 카르스인데로 카카 먼저 모터 쓰고 다 자가게 접대로 모터. 지난 배배게 잡는 농구 쓰고 그러면 네 농구로 좋아로 봐. 농구 봐라. 그래서 다도 모터 랍잖아 되겠다. 모델 코로 지디나 대 모델 두스가 말봐. 모델 코로. 모델 코로. 대 모델 코로 맞세. 모델 잘라 간가 대 샤나. 모델 잘라 대 두스가 왔다. 모델 디 투고디. 대 두스 모델 두스가 말봐. 제장 우타 모델 투고 간가 여기 있는데 모델 두스가 말봐. 모델 잘라 디 샤샤스다. 다 이게 주 디니 코로 디. 엔 차장 주 디제. 디니 모델 내가 치도하죠. 모델 사치 여러와. 강가 주 디니 로초조 제디 내가 치동이지나. 어디 모델 하다 샤르고 살라티게 강가 텔 때는 모델 다 샤르마 더. 그 당고에 따면 당고에 다 잘라 유디나 모델 두서고 봐. 시그먼도 와. 제자 강가 디니 모델 내가 치동인데 모다 쓰라고 모다. 어디? 어디 가르스는 텔 때는 디 샤오래. 텐디 텔레 뜨네 샤브르 마도 코르데르 모더라와 줘야 버렸대 모다스 라버다 따버
So now I'd like to talk a little bit about how important dependent arising according to the understanding of the Prasangika system. So I wanted to talk about it in connection with the what we call a mota in Tibetan. They call mota. Actually, the real term, the proper term in Tibetan would be numkor, which means like an oil cart or a petrol cart, and, a cart that runs based on petrol, right? Or anyway, gas. So anyway, these days in colloquial Tibetan, we use the word mota, so I think we can recognize that. So it's a motor, it's a car, right? So anyway, we're talking about this in relation to a car. So the thing is, if you've got, if you pile up the wheels and the axle and the hood and the steering wheel and all those different parts that go to make up a car, if you put them all in a heap, you wouldn't call that a car, would you? You wouldn't call that a car. That's the heap of the components of a car. You wouldn't call a car. What would you call it? You say, well, it's just all the parts of a car, but you wouldn't say this is a car. When all the parts have been put together and you can actually drive it, it actually runs, then you would call it a car. So in this way you can understand that being a car is something which depends upon others. It depends upon the combination of the parts of the car. So so this gives you an idea of the of dependent arising in connection with a car. No.
我都是，我家长都是，就是等这个，就对呢，做的吧嘛，都没得做那么多，在家那些对呢，没得出个多啊。俺当然先当到，俺的这些人呢，这个多，对对对，家那我不能呢，他们呢，俺们呢，不过时间呢，不过的，那俺们的对呢，俺们没那个用过嘛，俺们对呢个不过的穷，俺们对呢穷，俺们对呢穷的。 다 아마 차야 가서 보고 들렸더니 보고면 아마 쓰기 말을 쳐서 보고 들렸더니 아마 시작다 그래봐 다디 그 보고 들렸 중 말봐 아마 중말 보고 들렸더니 아마 써 제가 그래서 간가 땡데사디는 줄렸더니 이집이 용 말에 줄 때네 중을 야 때네 샤 간가 얘나 간가 들려 샤고
So you see there, that's an example of how something is a dependent arising, how it exists. In fact, we could say it comes into existence, it comes into being through depending upon other things. And then if you think about like parents and their child, so obviously the child depends upon the parents, because it's the parents that produce the child. So it's very easy to see how an effect depends upon its cause. But actually also within the Prasangika system there is this special understanding that it's not just that effects depend upon their causes depend upon their effects. So that, for example, in this instance, the mother depends upon the child. In other words, that person being a mother depends upon the child, not in the sense of the child, giving birth to the mother or, producing the mother, but that person is only a mother because of having given birth to that child. So it's in that sense that also causes depend upon their effect. She became a mother depending upon the child, depending upon having given birth to the child. So it's in this way that in the Prasangika system, we would say not just that effects depend upon their causes, but also causes depend upon their effects. No.
단단가 라조 약보다 독자 사요 봐. 이 약보다 독가 사티. 독가 듣는데 약아샤. 다들 야가 되고 야 텔레 야가 주는 거 누가 차사 봐고 텐텐 티션이요 말에 제가 상고다 녀바사티 상고사한테 녀바칠 텐데 상고레스 디샤르마도 그 당번에 상고 딘데 라왕 두요 말에 다 다가는 시 텔레 상가 이는 거 녀바 찬도야对吧 다른 나라도 제바사죠 제바다 미제 사죠 제바 단다 하트 쉬우 제바 인스탄다 빼모 리규 마다 리규 단다 디난레 지존 드메테나 때베나 요바 오 온주 중마 빼모 리규 마다 리규 마사트 스페셜 제바다도 샤고지 제보 다 딜레 사가 지존 드마 페나 지존 드마도 콘조 요모라로 지고다 그래서 규준 제모자면 더 가봤어 제요 요모에 베트라로 맞아. 지금 지금 저만 제다 쉬는. 다 고도 쉬운 제브리디. 텔레베든 제브 지금도 다 고도 베티 요거 다 쪼버tin 되지 라로치 맞아. 딘데 디도 되베나. 제가 딘데 손자. 대소 야니 제바다 녀바사 대소 찍찍 떠는 샤브레. 도체.
It's like that also when we talk about good and bad. We might say something is good, but then if you bring along, it's only good relative to something which is bad. And then if you bring along something which is even better, then the new thing is what you would call good, and the one that you were calling good before, you would say that's the bad one. So good, bad, I don't know, like good quality, bad quality, that kind of thing. And also when we think about beauty versus something beautiful versus something ugly. So, for example, there's one of the verses in the praises to Tara. And so what this verse is, what we can understand from that verse is that there are certain goddesses. I didn't quite catch their names, but anyway, these goddesses are extremely beautiful. But then in comparison to Tara, because Tara is just so, like completely over the top beautiful, just so beautiful. Compared with her, they're kind of like they're nothing really. They can hardly be the servants of Tara. So in comparison to Tara, so normally we'd say they're goddesses, they're so beautiful, but compared with her, they're just nothing. So it's like that. No.
도잖아. 도체다. 도다 간다 유제가 텐데 뒤제도 텐데 이도 뒤면체 나라도 나가사도 텐데래요. 나가사도 허리 가서 매버데 나가슬라. 그래서 토야 매버. 저기야 매버. 까 수지 까고 마가 동바 파나 동바 때래 나가슬라 봐. 어디 대한 나가려고 그랬으나 누스다 간다 토야도 누 예매 데디 좀 봐. 어디 매버다 토야 래 매버디 루일리디 나가사도 루일 시사래. 나가사 디래. 어디 손다 고 어디 도스테니 샤 토리 까타 매베 차텔라 난과슬 바다 샤오르마도 그 도도시라만 두요 말에
Absolutely everything which exists is a dependent arising, whether it's a conditioned phenomenon or an unconditioned phenomena. So as far as the concerning the unconditioned phenomena, for example, you have unconditioned space, unconditioned space. So that's defined as a mere absence of tangibility and obstructiveness or obstruction. So, like for example, in the space before us, in front of us, there's you can't. There's nothing you can touch. There's nothing that obstructs you. So, and when that appears to your mind, then you understand there's space there. That's space, and so space depends upon the absence of tangibility and obstructiveness. So it also is a dependent arising. No.
제가 다음에 주야다 동반이 주야다 지다 rigba mango shira yore, rigba yore. Jig dude tende saro, dagana shin, and ngobojo dosam tende big gumze, tende mango yore, ine tanda tende ta tene, tende gumze in betene, and tonga ni to be anti rigbe kieva shifta, ti kwanfan yomare. Pena shendaru china, big karasana, ta jigdom tuamado kangato sieva chene. 다 거리네 시가와 잡으시니 디 벨라니 산에 민두 삼바체체 디시는 아니 다 민두 삼바체샤나 라와 매와 하고 되게 되면 해보시지 어디 켜는 민두 삼바체나 최다 홍도로 봐. 시 민두 체나 다 단다 땡데데 금전 때네 동반이 떠야라 최다 홍아야 막 딱다 홍 한이니가 홍구요 말해 그래서 디 쉬우지 내가 첨보래 지존 잠배양 거다 땡데 디 송구도가 땡데 송버봐 어디 디 가려서는 지금 이제 떼네 줘버려 떼네 줘버 인자 떼네 줘빈자 라왕게 매 라왕고 마대베 라왕 매 스동과 니체 라왕 줘베 동과 동마니 고시달 떼버려 시제 떼버데 땡데세 띵이부 디체도 따가달래 송그 말에 체다 송 말에 어떻게 냥가 잡아내요 어떻게
There are many different logical reasons for establishing emptiness, or in other words, for establishing selflessness. Like, for example, there's the reasoning of freedom from one and many. There's the diamond slivers reasoning. And there's also the reasoning of dependent arising, which is referred to as the king of reasons for proving that things are empty. And the fact that it's called the king of reasons implies that it's the best reason for understanding emptiness. And the reason is this: if you approach emptiness, the understanding of emptiness, with the reasoning of the freedom from being one and many, then you won't find something which is, you know, like a truly existent one or a truly existent many. So it's good from the point of view that you'll understand that it's empty existing from its own side, because it's not a one or a many that exists from its own side. But there's a great risk that you'll think, well, therefore it doesn't exist at all. So you could definitely get a nihilist understanding of that. Whereas in the case of dependent arising, there's no risk of falling foul of either type of extreme view, neither the nihilist view nor the sort of like the eternalist or view of permanence. Because when you understand that something is a dependent arising, you not only understand that if it's dependent, then it can't be independent, so it's empty of being independent. So you wouldn't go to you wouldn't get that extreme. You wouldn't hold on to that extreme of things being truly existent. So the extreme of existence, or the eternalist extreme. And also, by understanding that it's dependent, that means you understand that it exists because it exists dependently. So you wouldn't run the risk of concluding that because it's a dependent arising, empty because it's dependent arising, that therefore it doesn't exist at all. So that's the really amazing thing about understanding emptiness, or approaching emptiness in terms of dependent arising. No.
뭐도잖아. 다 되네. somebody 다베 캐주 다 탱규베 다베 캐주스요. 배 현다 수지면이 캐주 믹스. 어디 디딩거. 자 나베 여다 세바다 동베 메다 세시 동베 교단 레고 차베 출신나 탄진 다베 토바 미교로사.
Now let's move on to the next verse, and in terms of the outlines, it's called the particular special quality of the Prasangika view. So this is verse 13, and it says, furthermore, appearance eliminates the extreme of existence, and emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. If you realize how emptiness manifests in the manner of cause and effect, then you are not captivated by wrong notions holding extreme views. Now,
오야. 더도 현야다 믹스 야 디데 요르스 거야. 나베 요다 세바당 현 나베 요다 나와사디 아니 덴디스요 나다 덴디도 찍버래. 덴디 간다 덴디사도 요서질라 거로 왔다는 나서 믹 통세네. 오 덴디 다 지당 디체비나. 오 델레 덴디 요다 세그레스. 요다 스데잔바 베티 다 디고 그 요다 스베티 디 요베 인자 덴바토 왔다. 제라마바 되돌아와네 신제 규도 데부테도 뱅고이 내주베 템바레샤 규레텐 데부 연구도 템바테냐라 사세 오투스 제나타 고 예다 신샤로 예베타 딱다세 오 딘데 마레스 단다 디가 덴디스원사 떠네 투바레 떠네 투바 인사 오 라왕게 민도 라왕기 오 마데베 라왕 투바 도도 스타네 민도 체체 디스 예다 데르바 템바 투바 오티 멘두스 하고레스 나베 그래서 또 어떤 대체 나왜 여다 세버시 똥바사디 아니 메다서 똥바사도 코라다 지다 메다사야 카보로 봐 이네 메다사디 근데서는 라왕게 민두스 라왕게 메하고 뒤좀봐 자반이 메스기요 말에 라왕게 메 라왕게 그래서 뜻도 들었더니 요래 라왕게 메스 똥바니사 디체도 디 메다세도 메다사 자반이 민두 지면도 사죠봐 뭐 딘데 매워 하고 그랬어 어디 디체 어디 될 어제다 다 딘데 셰비나 그 요스시나 탄지다베 도면 요로서 딱달에 놓은 거 말이 체달론 걸 탄지 한인 지야죠봐 각게 우메 남서 도토 그래서 개주 요르서 됐어
Now, in this verse, when it says appearance, this is talking about dependent arising. So it means dependent arising. In other words, understanding when it says, furthermore, appearance eliminates the extreme of existence. What that means is understanding dependent arising will make you avoid the extreme of existence, which means the extreme of things being truly existent. So the extreme of existence means true existence. The extreme of existence means true existence. So understanding appearances means understanding dependent arising. Your understanding of dependent arising means you understand things don't exist truly. You understand they don't exist truly because if something is a dependent arising, that means it exists relative to other things, in relation to other things. It doesn't exist independently. It's empty of existing independently. So it's not, if it's empty of existing independently, empty of true existence, that means you've understood the extreme of existence doesn't exist. The extreme of existence means true existence. You've understood things are not truly existent. Then when it says emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. So in fact, of course, when we say something is empty, what we mean is it doesn't exist independently. Why? Because it's dependent. Now, when you think that things are empty and therefore they don't exist at all, empty of independent existence means that they're not truly existent. That means they don't exist at all. Like, for example, within the Vaibhashika system, you have the belief that certain phenomena are truly existent, and for them completely, it has to be truly existent. If it's not truly existent, then it doesn't exist at all. So that's an extreme view, that if things aren't truly existent, they don't exist at all. But here, what it's saying is emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. And how that works is because understanding this empty means you understand it's empty of independent existence, means you're understanding that it's dependent. It's empty of independent existence because it's dependent. Well, if it's dependent, it must exist. Something can't be dependent on others if it doesn't exist. So in this way, your understanding of emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence, the nihilist extreme. No.
못하잖아. 다디 어다디 저지 다들 다 냠솔라야 꾸가 쇼쇼들이 다 쇼들 가래서나 도 송샤 대다 남겨做남송 있네나 랑게 시신 도에서 엠바덴데 주로 도게네 땡긴 드먼요도 두시 포스는데
Now with the last verse, Lama Tsongkhapa concludes his teaching by encouraging us to practice what he's taught. So this is verse 14, and it says, in this way, you realize exactly the vital points of the three principal aspects of the path, resort to seeking solitude, generate the power of effort, and quickly accomplish your final goal, my child, he says. No.
예, 어다디 제가 뭐 종거 침부 아니 콩글로마 사고 병 나와 잡았어. 콩래야. 아니 다디 내가 베디 비기 닝부 줘라 봐. 비기 타바다 탐지 팀 거두비네. 닝부 뒤에 두 송거래. 대 송부티. 라면서 대 송네 디내가 디 캔스나 현스나 아니 에바텐디스 다 조조 세메 엠바스그래. 오 텐디 아니 준주 냠내야 고치 셴네. 땡기 두마 다 가래서나 디 타바 침보 상계 고만 토바 땡. 제가 상계 고바도 뉴트. 조고야 두쇼스 그냥 땡기 두마선 당하라서 톱자 타도 고야 돼. 땡기 대바 동네 짜만 좋아니. 땡기 대바 대마체 심지 시험 배턴 배틀 가리네. 배민으로 시돈 상계 고바는 봐. 상계 고바 뉴트 두시 부스. 부스 배트 쉬우지가 짜봐. 로마 현다 면다. 짜봐 쉬어. 다고 배 춘주가 로마로 봐. 두스 부스노래. 뉴트시 부스.
Here in this verse, of course, like explicitly, Lama Tsongkhapa is talking to his disciple, Sao, because anyway, Ngaondrapa, Sao Kandas, Sao.
Sao Bern Ngaotrapa.
Sao Bern Ngaondrapa, sorry. So he's summarizing what he's taught and, in terms of its essence, this essential point, which is having understand the vital points of the three principal paths that I've explained here. He says you need to put yourself in isolation, resort to isolation, which means, so it says here in the translation, solitude, seek solitude, resort to solitude, which means that means solitude, isolating the mind and finding solitude of the mind. And having found solitude, then use your understanding of these three principal paths in order to achieve enlightenment. So when it says accomplish your final goal, that final goal refers to the great enlightenment of Buddhahood, where you're able to help the sentient beings without effort and spontaneously. And he finishes with the word my child, and this indicates just how fond Lama Tsongkhapa was of this disciple, who had been a disciple since he was very young. No.
어떠잖아. 다 도치. 오야 다디 조성. 디 다니게 슈사디 라마 망고리 조조 장고를 뭐 진짜. 디미 기회신이 망체네. 어디 남조도 쉬우는 것도 와. 딘데스 톱성. 디세 디 가서 다 티도 롱간 거 톱래. 조 장고를 뭐 진짜 그러다. 도체제. 다리 표비 디 조 단다 딘데시 아니 직송으로 지고 고송한데 아니 디 가서 다 데르바세메 마고 공체 아니 슝이티 마고다 아니 디 가서래 공부 속바 어떤 딘데스 쉬나무래 아니 마고이네 녀만에 지금 아주 다 초로 있는 거래 다 로망고네 유이버지 코란베 토난 첨부 딘데시들에 제자 아니 토지치에선 쉬아이 더잖아 마고 또 지수는 마고도 마고 속발 대다 근데 저리나니 또 우리 저리나니 마고 여러 봐 근데 그 저리나니 상마로 두지체스
그럼 이틀리 말해.
세븐데
집에를 해. 이거 이틀리를 삼지. No. No. Now this completes the teaching, and I received this teaching myself from, well, nearly all of my teachers. Actually, everybody teaches this because it's so important. But particularly, I have received it from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I've received transmission and also commentary. And so that's one thing. And then I wanted to say particularly thank you to Marco from Spain and his group. Marco's an old Dharma friend and has a great interest in the Buddha's teaching. So I wanted to say thanks. And I also wanted to thank the organizers. Of course, this kind of event requires a lot of organizing. So thanks to all of you as well.
도시라 대다 다다디 아니 그 토나 신부 나니 다들 센슈 망고시 모신기도 당연만에 저도 님벌에도 모신기도 제가 지나서 토나 신부체 토나 예네 아니 토나 예네 다 마시요 말어 가와이네 제가 토나 신부체 베트 남균에 tin데 요래 제가 다리 토나 신부체 도 세나네 tin데리샤 안 상말로 두지치 체네 슈아이 퇴나 냠내야고 나고 냠내 나는 빼편도 친 보여래. 대다되네 이 송규 수고인다. 송규 다 개체. 개 그때 타르바르바 개체 다 다가는 시 아니 다 송규 가서 송규를 망고 여바데 가서 파비서 개인 파비서다 다가는 시 공가서 공체 배제 사샤. 남기 배우시고 배제 사샤.
톱된 얘기도 톱된
배트 야 배제 개버셔. 공원체 다 다가는 시 현다 송규 여사래. 참말라 송규도 거진체 도체나. 아니 송규사들 레라고 짜나 요마다. 뭐네 타네. 녜만 녜다지 생용 장고를 마 송규 좀 봐. 벽에 송걸 봐. 벽에 뒤 원래도 신 벽에 걸래 뒤에 붙이도 다 나도로. 배트 교고 배깔래 가고. 송교사의 시도였어도 때문에 다 균형하면도 제가 도치하나 그렇지.
And then besides also, of course, I wanted to thank everybody that's attended this event. I wanted to thank you for, showing such a great interest in this teaching. Actually, I think, I know all of you, all kind of old students. And so I'm glad that you attended this event, that you listened to this teaching. And of course, on top of that, it's really important to practice. And if you do, then you'll get so much out of it. That would be really good. Then I also want to thank the translators, the translator into English. Then there's Fabrizio translated into Italian, Gen Fabrizio, and then there is Gen Tubten, who translated into Nepalese. So he's a really good scholar, so very good. And there are other translators. I know, I'm sorry not to mention all your names, but there are other translators. And so thanks very much for your work, for making this possible. And I know that it's translating. I know from personal experience that it's really not easy to translate. And how I know is because one time I tried listening to His Holiness teaching and repeating back what he said in Tibetan, and I wasn't able to do it. So it's very difficult. So, and, without the translator, of course, then, we can't get anywhere. So really, thanks very much to the translators as well.
도체나. 다 되네요. 다 뒤주 테스트 도가 된다. 제가 건지 유나 티베 나로나 쉬어요. 제가.
No. There's a little bit of time left, so perhaps if there are questions, then please go ahead and ask. So this is up.
Whoever you unmute the panelist, and you can raise your question in English.
Rinpoche.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
hello.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question, Rinpoche,
Yes.
about renunciation. About renunciation, in terms of Tantra, Vajrayana, in terms of the great perfection, everything is viewed as bliss and emptiness. Everything is viewed as non-duality, Rigpa. So, in that context, how do we integrate the understanding of renunciation, where it involves the holy concerns? How do we understand that within the context of Vajrayana? Thank you, Rinpoche.
어떻잖아.
No, Rinpoche the ngejun kola de dejikyon na swa. Chasang ngazo de ngagi kabla tene tamche ane de detong nisume be yeshiki namres chik samtangoras ti jangro wala. Chasang dini the doris do not dini gawa marves. Ti gawa mimba kandesogres.
이게 그거 싸워나 말해. 전에 따다 거래도 그런 거 편이요 말해. 나 그도래야. 다 그래서나 나를 냠네 치도 잠바 비게 당에 나와. 딱 나서 딱에 나와. 근데 딱 거래. 뭐래. 그래서나 나랑도 창매규리야. 창매규를 감디시 인부 체제. 감디시 인부 쓰그래. 나 제나 육말 현지 집에 왜 세서 그래. 티 가르스는 랑센데를 센데. 랑센디 토마 잡아내요. 막 토마 디네 총수요. 막 뺐대. 토마 매번에 총 토마 매번에 교회 잡아내 매봐. 윤대 꼭 배드 가르시다 딥더마도 윤대 상계 윤대 강가 윤이 오 가지 랑센디래. 어디 다디 날 커도를 가르스는 다가데 랑센들의 랑센 추구스요. 디 토네 아니 하기 지도 좀 수부다가 학 공부요 말에 단다 랑셈 셔봐 셈디 아니 랑셈 다가라 아니 하다 아니 셰야 칸다 다가나 히 다괴 신 아니 셈제 탐제 파티 트네 셈제 탐제 율리티 요래 감디시 인부 쳇다 오 뉴메 외세디 요러 외세 딩안데 엔 하드도 게데 오 두스 타고 디테니 디 나를 냠네 차디 공부는 뭐 딱간다 시지 루직 배 상게 두비야 믹스지요. 다디 단다레 단다데 슈기 된 디그 말에 데 나디 지난 단다디 말에 쉬어야 되다. 거라 수도 라고 그랬다.
다디당 ngejungi
니조사야 돼. 가래랑 코발에 탄도 쉬어 봐. 코발에 탄이 단다 심진세는 코발서 강에 시위해서 봐. 지보드 가래선 당문인데 상게 거라 감시하러 봐. 제두게 상랑 상게 터져 봐. 단단네 냠내 고배 가가래 돼. 근데 단단이네 근데 담배 상게다. 어디 주고 때도 상게 잡아도 공으로 봐. 다들 대부 용다 시소래. 상게 가사 꾸타고 송타고 아니 그래서 롱주 타고 잡아 타고 어디 나 근데 공으래. 어디다 단대디 가사 땡겨봐요 말해. 단다대 신내 나랑 내 당보야 로어 봐다. 두스래.
Well, actually, these two do fit together very well. How they fit together is, well, in the tantric practice, it's really important to practice, to train in pure view, right? And this practice of pure view is really reality based, because it's based upon the fact that we all have this basic element, which is the Buddha nature, which is referred to in Tantra as the primordial clear light mind. And so this is talking about our own mind, which has no beginning, and which therefore, without beginning, has always had all of the enlightened qualities, and without beginning, in other words, since beginningless time, has been completely pure and completely free of all impurities. and it's referred to also as one's own Dharmakaya mind. So it's on that basis that one arises in the form of a deity, and also the mandala and the pure land of that deity, and so on. And it's on that basis that one is able to achieve enlightenment in one lifetime through, we have the practice of the four complete purities: the purity of one's body, the purity of resources, the purity of the deeds, and so forth. So then in terms of renunciation, this also has to be, that practice has to be based upon renunciation, because renunciation means understanding the faults of cyclic existence so that you don't want to stay in cyclic existence, and rather you want to achieve liberation from cyclic existence for the sake of all sentient beings. No.
투모 남자 너도 교바나 제르무지 송다 투모 남자 너도 교바나 틱버 군기 초기 도지디 계산 기분 중에 담바된 대란이도 좀 봐싱이로스 제장아 냠네 진이는 투모 남자 디게 니중 장심 양답에 따와데 예바도 거 너도 인데 인가 디 냠네 진 디게라 로레 디게 강가 하고네 에네 셰스나 에네 나 냠네 샤데 가레스나 다 닝지 현다메다 가레스나 rāng nī zhōng kēpa dā rāng jī wā rā bā, xiān pā khā lō nē, xiān dā bē khuā bē nā tā yā bē dōngi kī nā wā mā sō bā tē lā, nīng jī chīmbā sī rā. Xē zā, dā rāng kē bē dī nīng jī dā khā rā sā na, o dā ngā chāng dā rāng sāng gē jī, sīm jī dī kē khuā bē dōngi lē dō gu dō sī bē, o dō gu dō. Tī dē xā xā na, hōng zō bē nī mā jī yī nē kā ngē xī bā tē dō sā. Xē zā nīng jī xiān dā mā nīng jī xiō jī kā xī nīng jī, bē ngā ñam nī nīng jī tōp xē guā rā. O dē lē tē nē, ene 탑시 가래서나 ene 랑sem 오 랑 다 현다 매비지 생고 토네 어디든지 세지 상계 고반 람사 뉴도 두토야 nga 투무 많이 버셔 오 도스레 제가 띵게바 요 말에 nga 냠네 신이 이집미지 니주 장서 양다 베다 고르다 내가 요 말 요야.
And furthermore, we can see how they really do fit together very well. It's not like there's some kind of, it's either one or the other. You're either going to practice renunciation or you're going to practice the training in pure appearances. It's not like that. We can understand also from Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings, what is it that we call it? The foundation of all good qualities. There's that one verse where it mentions having trained, having become a vessel, the right vessel through training in the common path, then may I enter the supreme path of the Vajrayana. There's that verse, right? And when it says the common path, what that's talking about is the three principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view, realizing emptiness. So you absolutely have to have those three principal aspects of the path in order to be able to practice Tantra. And that includes the great compassion, which is based upon renunciation, and where, of course, you have great compassion by following the sutra path, but especially in Tantra, you have a very powerful practice of great compassion where you're thinking, like, right now, I must liberate all the sentient beings, and that leads you to thinking, right now I have to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, because even delaying it for my enlightenment for one day means the sentient beings will have to carry on suffering, and it's going to be so difficult for them. No. Another question? Looks like the first one. Looks like the first one up here is Fenty. Fenty's group. You've got your hand up.
Yep. Hi. Hi, Rinpoche. Good evening.
Yeah.
This is Jaya from Malaysia. Hi, Steve. Hi, Venerable Steve. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, in the Madhyamika view, the object of negation is the is true existence, inherent existence, and all kind of existence in terms of ultimate existence or whatever form of existence. So what's negation? Object negation is inherent existence, whereas the mere I or the conventional existence is not negated in the Madhyamika view, at least. However, when it goes to the Prasangika view, the Prasangika view also negates conventional truth.
What?
And calls conventional truth concealer truth. The Prasangika view.
Negates conventional truth?
No, conventional truth becomes an object of negation as well. It's called a concealer truth. Conventional truth becomes known as a concealer truth. And even entering the middle way, it says, delusion obscures reality. So why is the Prasangika view, though the Prasangika say that up to the point of time that one becomes a Buddha, one still sees true existence, inherent existence. But how do you, if you negate mere existence, mere conventionalities, then what do you stand on? There's nothing, aren't you, isn't it some kind of nihilism?
Anyway, I can ask, but I mean, there's no way the Prasangikas say the conventional existence is the object of negation, but we'll ask anyway. Rinpoche, this ikdo, ta ko chiran chena de ume ane gajala de ane dendrup shagido dendrup che rangi seni droba dan dozo de rangani dozo de gaja shagido gala. Ta chiran chena uma belula ane de ngasam di ane gaja shagi mendos yenayang ane tangyu belula ane kunzo denba dozo di gaja shagido gas. Duko disigido gaja shagidos ane the cause stang mage bado ane nayala ane cause jedok gabla ane the nayada ane dendrup nangidu gas di karares
ya ta di kasore kuso de ba gaja shama dan gaja la ni ba kaya ter yoya chi da meya chi ni yore yoya de karesana ngaranzu gi danzi o te to lokshe de lokshe danzi mari ba sem sig marda o sem nan shuga ma danzi mari ba ti o lubu di yode ni kora o di danzi mari ba chi re ti yore sheja sem der ba 되네 나라도 뉴메sem도 시가 말해 뭐 로고 버래 다 되네 찌 가려서 매주도 가려서는 템바토 버래 템바토가 싸우는 요 말해 이난 가자래 고 가려서는 가자리 니 샤당을 넘나 요봐 다때 라모고시 어떠서래
no actually there's no way that in the Prasangika system that conventional truths are considered to be the object of negation. In fact, if you look at the Lamrim teachings, you see Lama Tsongkhapa talks about two objects of negation, or two types of object of negation. There's one which exists and one which doesn't exist. The one which does exist is a kind of mind, a kind of mind. In other words, ignorance, true grasping at true existence. Those are to be negated, and they also exist. Then in terms of the one that doesn't exist, well, that would be true existence itself, true existence from its own side. Even though they don't exist, they do need to be negated. Therefore, they're referred to as gaccha. Gaccha literally means something which needs to be negated. We usually call it in English object of negation, but it's not actually an object. It doesn't actually exist. No.
아니 다 각자 열봐 각자디 나도 여섯질 명이 딘도 진도를 담바도 그래서 연계 매니지를 겨 말해 다 여섯질 그래서 잘라 있는 거 가면 텔 명이 아니 딘진 그래서 담바도 진 그래서 다디 현다 떠봐매 봐 수질 마도 봐 라만 거 열었어 zindigore oti dinzisa ta dinzi zimba tela ya dame to be shirab jeba chene dinzi zima na shin do mendo o do 제드 잠바 맵 하고 그래 오 데바토 큰 싸워내면서 데메도 be 싫어 동만이도 be 싫었디 맵 하고 뒤잠바 아니 단지고 교주르샤 그 zimana 시 민도 딘도 거는 민도 체제 온 가자 캐도 다 가자 맵 찬도
Now, for this, yeah, so to go into this a little bit more, what happens is we focus on, or in other words, referring to something which does exist. The true grasping mind thinks that object exists truly, completely independent of anything else. So that's what the true grasping mind is thinking, right? So true grasping, ignorance, whatever you want to call it. And now then wisdom comes along and analyzes to see whether that thing really does exist from its own side, independently, truly. And through its analysis, then it discovers such a thing doesn't exist. And in that way, it negates that object of negation, true existence. No.
So,
no.
오토치 다데 투드 체가 제샤 다데 샤기 그래서는 먼저 니마 같이做错래 니마 가 tin 대선자 다 도공 대스kanzo 치부 차소 아니 야고 다데 야고 총시나 도난 첨부체 야 마오 버제요 토샤나
No. So I'd like to stop there now. Here where I am, it's 6:30. We started at 5. It's 6:30 now. And so we've met together for 2 days, and it's been very good. I really appreciate the interest that you've shown in this. And, well, I hope we'll meet again sometime then. Okay, so thanks very much.
sa xin be ye jiu xin me do zhang zhe ra ling xin nian de jian ba de san ye xing du me de e ba yin zhu ge nam da zhe ba re xiao kan re ra wei guo wei xin gam de re pen da de wa ma lun jun wen jian re sen wang dian zi jia zu yi xia wei si de bo den yu ru jie chang a qian bu zha yin ne sem ji dong e ta yi ge wa che wa sam ye zu qu den zi xiu gu ru jie Idamon guru rana mendela gamne ya daya me